I'm happy to welcome you on behalf of CMS IT Services and our partner Automation Anywhere. Uh, my name is Sunil Menon. I lead the digital practice at CMS IT Services. Uh, Brief introduction about CMS IT Services. We are a leading end-to-end IT services provider with more than 40 years behind us. We are largely an India-focused player, and for that reason, we bring to the market a techno-functional prowess that is unparalleled in its India focus and its approach to solving market-specific problems to India. Automation Anywhere, our partners, of course, need no introduction. They're a global leader in intelligent automation, and consistently they bring innovative and technological edge to problem solving with respect to intelligent automation. So with that, I'll also like to say it's really a privilege for me to be again with my my co-panelist Sumit Pathak from Automation Anywhere. Thank you, Sumit, for joining us. Uh, Sumit is an accomplished pioneer in RPA, and I'm privileged to have co-paneled with him on earlier occasions as well. He comes with a very rich experience in having enabled RPA to scale in large organizations. He has over 20 years of experience in top tier regional and global banking institutions. Over the course of his career, uh, Sumit has led major functions and has projects covering financial, digital, and core banking products with a team spread across multiple geographies. So he's today an evangelist of software automation, and Sumit has led implementing automation strategy and execution in the finance industry. He has also built several automation centers of excellence in multiple organizations with over 400 plus wide-ranging processes that he has automated. So again, thank you very much, Sumit. Sumit has a master's in e-commerce degree from Deakin University, Australia, and he's an avid runner. He runs half marathons, and he has run across the world in several cities. So welcome, Sumit.
Thank
So
you, Sunil, and not as avid runner as you are. We were just speaking before the session started that
thank you.
you do
Thank
you run half marathon every week. So
you.
so
Thank you.
that's an
Yeah,
amazing feat,
not
and
not not for the last few weeks because of the situation, I guess. But
yeah,
yes,
of course.
I think apart from automation, we also share another passion, and that's what makes it very interesting to do this session with you.
Yeah,
Right?
likewise, Sunil. Yeah, so
Thank you.
thank you,
Thank
and appreciate everyone who have dialed in. We appreciate your time, and we hope that post this session you'll be able to take some value out of this presentation. Let's keep the session as interactive as possible. If you've got any questions,
you. Yes.
uh, to please ask through, and then let's instead of me having a monologue, if you all can speak and we can ask questions, let's make it more of an interactive session than just a presentation. Today's
Sure.
let me know, Sunil, if you're able to see my deck.
Not yet, because
Not yet, right? Okay.
the first few slides are introductory slides, Sumit. So I thought I will just take the panel through the context setting
Please do
session,
that. Yeah, please do
and
that.
then
Thank you.
after that I will pass the control over to you.
Sure, man.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks again, Sumit, and thank you everybody. I see a few more people have joined in, so they've missed only the introduction, but of course this is going to be recorded, etc. So I'll move on to that from that to our practice at CMS IT Services, which is very highly focused on intelligent automation. The digital practice, we engineer innovation and champion making digital as a value accretive part of our customers' growth story. The term digital has itself metamorphosized over the years. And when I was growing up, I remember that digital is what I saw in the science fiction movies and in video games. So 20 years ago, having a web page was going digital. So I'd like to set the context of what it is that we at CMS IT Services and mean by digital. We feel that a business uh, or a part of the business that is using digital channels to enable substantial part of their sales, operation, internal processes and investments. That's what we call a truly digital or a aspiring to be digital organization. So to that end, you can see that we have focused on solutions that are driven by innovation on one end and also by realization of returns on the other end, because that's equally important, because it's a business solution that we are talking about. Simplicity is, the essential, is very essential while rolling the digital processes. I'm sure Sumit will agree. Digital processes may be complex, but it should not be complicated. That's what we say. How do we simplify and make it so simple that the number of users doing uh, number of how do we simplify and make it so simple that the number of users doing things themselves is very high? I'll take the example of bank teller's job. For example, it's a very complex transaction when you actually think of the number of things that a bank teller has to do. uh, uh, the uh, the digital teller that we are more used to these days, that is the ATM machine, is actually doing the same operation. It is actually doing a complex operation, but making it very, very simple for the end user. And that's what the purpose of digital is. So in order to achieve simplicity in complex operations, we also need to uh, digitally design, and digital design should be a theme across all operations. After all, the idea was not to automate a wrongly designed transaction, but to execute a well designed process flawlessly. So, do we have a methodology? The question for us is, do we have a methodology to identify flaws in those transactions? And is that built into our system, that when a transaction is taking place, that we are actually evaluating the transaction for the efficacy of the process? So, in doing complex transactions flawlessly, are we scaling up the complex transaction too? Because it's not important to do a complex transaction right the first time, but can we do it again and again without doing mistakes? That's the other question that we have to ask ourselves as business leaders and process leaders. So, that's I think these questions are largely the key to intelligent automation. And we believe that if you truly want to disrupt within your organization, it should be a result of a well thought out design, right? And so the move to digital, because of the opportunities presented by digital itself, the move to digital is very, very complicated. And but we'd like to say that, in the current context, it is the, uh, you know it's about making a digital workforce is about making your human employees feel more valuable by giving them more important tasks that empower their intellect, right? So that's what we are trying to do while creating a digital workforce. There is use of technology, but it should be the optimal use of technology, and it should not. And it's about allowing human beings to play a more important role than what they're playing today in terms of uh, in terms of their role in their processes and their how are they bringing in their uh, things only human beings can do, but automation cannot do, right? So that's the focus of our test. So here are a few services that a digital workforce would be able to power up for your organizations. The scalability of these processes will, take the process itself to the next level. Today's discussion is focused on, the second row that you see, processes at work. Uh, I have been personally an ERP consultant, ERP professional, and enterprise solutions professional for bulk of my career, and uh, I've seen ERP as a change proposition over the years. But then, the core processes of all organizations are powered by systems that are all into one of these two camps that you see over here. But actually, it's not. The level of homogeneity will differ, but you know my long years of enabling these processes have made me to realize how important these processes are, irrespective of which camp you're in, whether you're into a homogeneous aspect as you see on the right side, or whether it's a more heterogeneous ecosystem that you have, which is on the left side, right? So these processes are very complex by nature because it interacts with the environment. A procurement manager, for example, he operates in a supplier ecosystem, and a finance manager operates in a cost environment along with several regulatory challenges, etc. So how do we uncomplicate the complex processes, just like the way the ATM has uncomplicated our teller's process, right? That is the focus that we are trying to bring in. And as you can see, I have categorized this on an environment basis. So when you're actually you have your pluses and minuses of both these environments, and that is what I'll try to focus on. Right. For example, you see the homogeneous single shop approach, uh, which is a blue over here, right? You say, so. Uh, while there is a big advantage that there has built-in integrations in this homogeneous approach, it still has some serious challenges pertaining to flexibility and functionality. In most cases, the processes are almost legacy because they're done to suit the product, and people in a standard monolithic ERP environment. The challenge is that people do processes to suit the product, and therefore those processes become legacy over a period of time. There is no continuous mechanism to ensure that the process is happening correctly, or whether there's no check and balance to ensure that if there is problems to the process, it will be corrected over a period of time. So many times, in order to avoid repetitive entries, the amount of manual man hours are wasted, in the organization. How do we solve these anomalies is one question. Now, let's also look at the other heterogeneous type of landscape. Here, there are two extremes. Most of us will fall in between the heterogeneous and the homogeneous. The challenges are of a completely different type in a heterogeneous. Now, how many of your employees are spending large hours as a bridge between applications? Because there is no transactional integrity unless you have all your APIs and your integrations in place. So that's a quick introduction that I had. So before I'd like to pass on make it more conversational from this point. So Sumit, I'd like to start by asking you some of these challenges in the core processes. I do speak to well-run organizations across the country, and we often see that the belief is that automation is focused on the process. I have implemented ERP or procurement and HCM, and therefore I'm able to uh, I'm able to be optimally efficient, is what most people say. So I've always wondered whether we are spending a lot of time on the process and not so much on the workforce. And how would you like to highlight the importance of a digital workforce in that context? That's my question to you to start with, Sumit. And you can also take
Yeah.
control of the screen. I'll just pass control of the screen.
And then again, thank you to everyone who have dialed in, tuned into the session as I suggested, and let's make it as interactive. To your point, Sunil, I think you're right. When automation journey starts, and I can talk from practitioner's view as well, it was always
Yeah.
about building the bots, right? Okay, how can I build more bots? How can I automate a certain part of the activity within the process?
Yeah.
While that helps at the start of the journey because you want to show some quick runs on the board, you want to get your own confidence going that you're comfortable with the technology, you can see something in actually in motion, and you can share the details with your stakeholders. That's well and good. But what happens is that you have to start looking at what value that particular process can provide, right? And to your point, from the ERP perspective, and organizations say that we already have ERP, why do we need
Yeah.
this? I think what we have seen, two things which I have seen, and as you suggested, you're an expert in that field, so help to support or say otherwise. When
Yeah.
you have ERP solutions in place, it's good to start with. But as we live in a very dynamic world, the process keeps changing every now and then, right? And they have an ERP is one part of the application of one application within the process set from end to end, and you will require various different applications to right from the initiation of the request to the fulfillment. And that's where the digital workforce will come into picture, where it will help to do certain activities which are robotic in nature, some activity which is intelligent in nature, and provide the data or input in ERP to basically go and to the other parts of activity. So I think it's looking at the overall picture in terms of overall value you provide to the organizations and how ERP and automation can come together to provide that.
So Sumit, even before we talk about the digital workforce, how will the digital workforce fundamentally change what is there as a part of an existing a legacy ERP, like I told you, right? Where the workforce is a completely a human workforce, and vis-a-vis the design of a ERP. for a digital workforce, an optimally digital workforce. What are your thoughts on that, Sumit?
See, RPA, that's a category itself, and technology which we bring from Automation Anywhere. First thing is non-invasive, right? So
Yes,
it can work on your existing ARP applications as well to connect
yes,
the two different applications within the process. So the way it will help the current workforce is it can, while you're looking at the steps within the process, you can see which are the manual activities, even using ERP because data has to be put into it, and can that robot do that instead? Right?
yeah,
So you can take away that manual data entry, downloading with activities, and can be done by the bots, right? Whereas the humans can then look at more value added activity instead. So with
yeah,
the help of automation, because it's a non-invasive, you don't have to make any changes in your ERP application. The human workforce, which is working on ERP and other applications, can get augmented with the help of the screen scraping technology, right? So no changes as far as the
yeah.
process is concerned. It just gets fast tracked with help of automation and provides more capacity for humans to do different things.
So I'll just like to say, Sumit, one of and I want your thoughts on it, is that one thing which I saw about during my early days in ERP, of course, before the pre-RPA days, is that when we put in an ERP system, over a period of time, that system itself gets a little complex because people are trying to to make suit their style of working to that particular system. And the second part is that there is no way to there is no way you know to actually analyze the process as it is being played out, right? But I think with RPA, all that is changing now, because one is we can actually analyze the way the process is taking place. There are tools in place to analyze how the whether the process is efficient enough or effective enough, etc. And the second part is that when a bot is doing it, it doesn't cut corners, unlike human beings. It does it in a very clear way. And if the bot is continuously stopping some place to ask for help, that's the bottleneck that has to be addressed in the ERP system. What are your
You're
thoughts on
right.
this?
No,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
right. I think,
yeah.
Sunil, this reminds me of one of the events I had attended when I just started in automation, and one gentleman in that particular event responded to this question while he was on the stage, that
Okay.
ERP have a process, and then organization has got its process on its own. What I mean is that when you
Yeah,
implement ERP,
absolutely.
there is a certain process which has been designed, but
Yes,
as the organization evolves, there's a huge gap which starts to come in between. That
correct.
leads to process inefficiencies, that leads to data corruption and all of that. And that's where the RPA can come
Yes,
handy, where certain part of the process is still relevant in ERP, the way it has been configured, and the way
yeah,
it has been evolved can be
yes.
managed with the help of bots.
Yeah. So there is, I think, with our bot insight, etc., we can also improve the way the bot is functioning. That's one big opportunity when we are doing a digital workforce vis-a-vis a human workforce, isn't it?
Yeah, see, I'm a big believer that if it cannot get measured, it can never, it is not done,
Yes,
right?
yes,
So
yes,
if you don't know, if there's no way to quantify the effort, then you don't know what it is. If I can speak in Hindi, I remember my father used to say, "Kaam ho gaya, हाँ ho gaya." Kitna hua, kitna acha hua, nobody knows, right? It just ho gaya, sir,
yes,
right? So this,
yes,
and
yes,
that's where TQM and all of that came into picture when he was in the
yes,
workforce, is retired. So I
yes,
think measure and monitoring capability is a must. And
correct.
right now, with the human workforce, you have certain KPIs and you also have, SLAs, and we have to adhere to that. So
Yes,
bots are no different. I think bot provides, and bot insights, as for that matter, provides more ability to go to more granular details of measuring and monitoring, which we couldn't do with humans in the past, right?
absolutely.
So it helps you to do a couple of things. Many times we have been asked that the data has to be good for RPA to work. I think it's the other way. If you use the RPA, your data will get better, right?
Absolutely.
That's one. Second is
Yes.
that you can have more detailed audit trail, right? So I have myself as a practitioner gone through 4 cycles of audit, two internal, two external. And the
Mhm.
questions they ask is, okay, if this step was taken by the bots, where is the log? right? And with the help of bots, you're able to go to that particular detail and get that log available. And third most important, with the insights, the operational insights and the business insights, you're able to
Yes.
identify the pattern
Yes.
where, and you can take certain corrective measures proactively, right? So operational insights will tell you the utility of the bot, the productivity of the bots, and the things like that. And operational insights
Yeah.
will tell you the value it derives. Like, for example, how many vendors were onboarded, or what is the total value of transaction taken by one particular vendor, right? And any exception which came through, or does it take too much time to deal with one particular vendor? So you can create those sort of data and analysis to make your job better.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, if you were to do a ground up, I wanted your thoughts on this. There are two types of scenarios here. Many of our people who have joined us today, they already have functioning systems in place. Whether it's a ERP or it's a banking system, we have representation from banking industry as well, which is where you spent a lot of time. So, and there are people who are also implementing new systems, right? So how would I mean I think the group will be interested to know how it will differ with a when you're implementing a ground up implementation, how and you want to do it right along with automation, how will it be, and vis-a-vis the other where there's already an existing system and you're trying to automate it.
Okay, that's a great question. I think, and let me make a very stark statement. Don't try to force fit a technology. That's one thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Second thing is that automation can coexist with
Yeah.
any of your application. That's the best part of it, right?
Yeah.
Because as I said, it works from a presentation layer. You do not need to create a pipe at the application or database layer. So whichever applications you have, right,
Yeah.
that will it can collaborate with that. We also know that 80% of the processes, which from our understanding are not STP. There are so many human touch points, right? There are
Sure.
so many different manual activities and inputs which is required. uh, for example, the previous organization I was working for, in one part of the bank, there were 180 applications. Many
Wow.
applications are too expensive, they are state of the art, but in the end, they do only one job, right?
Absolutely.
So how do you connect the bridge between these applications? They're different technologies, they are different. Some of them are so critical and they are end of their lease, their life, and you cannot expose API to them and things like that. So there are a lot of complexity. How can you work towards a solution which can complement to your strategic initiative, and go from there? So I believe the coexistence, it allows you to coexist. And let me give you a couple of tips, right? If you're looking at a process, in that process, if you're looking at making some major application upgrade, or trying to introduce a new product within the next 3 months, I would say don't choose those processes for automation. Just wait. Let your strategic objective of getting a new system in place come through.
Yeah.
Test it thoroughly, make it BAU, and then post that you apply bots. I think if you take those measures, I think collaboratively it can work together. And Sudhir, one
Actually,
more
we
point.
are.
Sorry, please
Sorry.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, you
Just
complete
one more
answer.
point which comes to mind. I had
Yeah.
a really good debate with one of the CIOs, right? And
Yeah.
the conclusion of that conversation was that while so see, the businesses have their own KPIs to achieve, and their
Yes.
KPIs could be be more efficient, productive. They have to have better customer score and all of that, and they measure it at a quarterly basis,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Some monthly, some 6 monthly, and so on and so forth. And there's
Yeah.
always this pressure on technology to do things better, to make
Mm.
sure that every business line have got their own respective KPIs to be given priority,
Mm.
right? In that situation, and that conversation, we said, well, let automation help you here. All
Yeah.
of these needs which are required by the business, many of
Mm.
that could be done with help of automation with RPA and IQBot. In the meantime, so that will take, and in a raw term, that will take the monkey off your back, so
Absolutely.
that
Yes.
you have responded to your customer need. And customer doesn't matter keep what's under the hood. All they want is a reliable, productive solution. it doesn't fail, right? So if you can apply automation and give that solution that takes away that pressure, and you can work on your strategic initiative of, say, implementing a core application or making your organization more secure and the sorts, and data centers and whatever.
Sure. So I'll just nuance one of the points that you made, Sumit, which is very interesting to me, because we are working with a customer right now who's where we are doing automation, and the new they're changing the financial system from one homegrown ERP to a new to a SAP, right? So what we decided was there is a large part of it which remains the same, in spite of the move to SAP, because their invoices from their suppliers are not going to change, right? And a lot of other things are not going to change. So we decided, like you said, to automate the part that is not changing, right? And we just leave the part which is changing. Even if you do it so for a short-term period, when that part is much easier to redo when the new system is placed. All you have to do is to train that bot to enter it in the new system, right? So that was an interesting point that you made, and surprisingly we had already done that in our existing conversation.
So,
Right.
so one of our mentors gave me an idea. He said that there are two types of automation.
Yeah.
One is outside in, other one is inside out. So what you spoke about just now is an example of outside in automation. While you might have a new application in place, the data still needs to be keyed in, and that's coming from the three-dimensional world, right? How do you ensure that particular part of the process is automated in a way that you're providing accurate, reliable, and timely information, so that the subsequent process or steps within the process is done more effectively and accurately?
Sure.
Right? And that's the key, that if you're able to automate the input so that you can improve the efficiency, so be it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Smith. So great, Smith. So I think you have some more slides to move on to, right? So
I think this is much better format. We can continue
yeah,
having conversation. If you want to ask some of your viewers to log in, tune in and ask
So
questions, let's do that.
our viewers can also unmute and ask questions as we speak.
And
But before any viewer asks, I would like to ask you a question. And
yeah,
I do you have we have spoken before about this, and I was thinking that there are some favorite transactions across which are becoming which are being where adoption of automation is very high, whether it's intelligent automation or whether it's RPA, right? And we see in procurement and finance, etc. There is a lot of use of RPA. What do you think it is because why is there tilt towards some transactions, and what is the kind of how would you evaluate a particular process and see whether they are it is fit for automation? How would you prioritize? That's a question I have before I pass on to the rest of the company.
that's a great point. Let me say that what I will not do, Sunil. So I will not go for the process which has got too many exceptions to start with.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm talking from a practical experience perspective. The tendency of humans is to basically let go the activity which is the most problematic. Okay. And that's the wrong way to start your automation. If you're looking at a process which is complex in nature, when I say complex, it could be as a result of various different scenarios, right? Or it could be various different conditions across various different applications, right? I would say don't start your journey from there. I would rather pick a process which is very simple, right? It could be just having 7 or 8 steps. Let's take example of P2P, right? Procure to pay, right? So when you when you get, let's say for example, RFP is done and vendor has been already identified, right? I have got a slide on that, so let me just bring it up, and
Please
I
do,
will
please
just
do.
suggest that. So right, so this is the example of P2P, right? So we raise a PO. I believe everyone in the call knows about it. We raise a PO, then we get all these various different documents, including goods from our vendor, right? You try to you try to recognize that particular invoice, you verify it, you make some exceptional handling, and then you make the approval and you send across. Now these are very easy steps, right? In this, if there's any exception, please don't look at that. But what you can do is that all of this step of raise a PO could be done with the help of a bot, right?
Sure.
And anything which basically, so any documents which are coming through could be collected with the help of a bot and put in one place. Then you can apply cognitive elements onto it to extract the details, right? Compare it, reconcile it between the invoice which has been received and the received good material, the document. You can see if the items are matching or not. And you can, once it has been there, if it is not identified, throw them in the exception bucket and continue, right? So
Sure.
these are the few steps which are very common. It is not very complex. So start your
Yeah.
journey from there. And as I said, you want for your own motivational perspective, and I'm talking the human element here. Everybody likes to see some success. So if you go with
Yes.
the most complex one, I think would be not the right way of doing it. And I've got some examples here which you can look at in terms
Sure.
of what to
Yeah.
automate. Yeah.
Sure, sure. That's great. It's a good point, Sumit, because I'll tell you one example of ours is where we did an automation for a large defense organization, where we chose the procure to pay thing, and the idea was to do procurement transformation. So just like you said, we chose the process which has got the highest probability of success. So when we chose that process, which was the GPD process, goods pass through document, where which you were talking about the comparison between the procure the PO and the receipts, right? So before that goes into the invoice. So what we saw, the reason we chose that process, and along with our customer, of course, is that one, it's a process that could be quickly automated because using
Yeah.
IQ bot and understanding the different formats or much is very very fast, especially because the quality of the technology that we are employing using the IQ bot. The second part was that this had maximum impact. It was affecting them. It was a big pain area for them that there were a lot of their employees were were using a lot of their existing man hours in doing these complex, repetitive, and highly prone to manual error kind of transactions. So
Yeah.
the combination of these two made it a very big success. The fact that I think the organization is looking at expanding their procurement transformation program to other units, other factories, and it's become very successful because of this particular choice of transaction. Is what I feel. Yeah. So
No, you're right.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think it's okay to repeat here, but I think it's very important to reinforce, right?
yeah, yeah,
Don't go with a heavy lot of scenario-based processes for now. I'm not
yes,
saying that they cannot get automated. Sunil, I remember when I started building the processes, there were certain big yeses and big nos. One of the things what, as we covered, if you have
yes.
any underlying application going through change within next 3 to 4 months, don't touch that one. If you
Okay.
have any seasonal flow, which means that if a process is taking happening, say for example, once in a quarter, once in a 6 months, that's a
Yeah,
really good candidate to look at, but not when you're starting your automation journey. Because what will
sure.
happen is
Yeah.
you would miss that cycle, and then when you're about to do your UAT, you have to wait for the next cycle to come.
Oh
But
yes.
I'm again
Yeah.
emphasizing that that's a really good candidate, but not at the start of your automation journey. You would want
Sure.
something which is simple, a high volume, right? And
Yeah.
not as critical, because what again you don't want to do is you build a bot on a critical process, and
Yeah.
then something incorrect happens, for not because that bot will misbehave, because the testing was not done properly, the scenarios were not covered, right? So
Mhm.
make sure that's covered. And if there's a maker checker function, please make sure that you restrict yourself to maker for now. All of this is the initial phase of your automation journey. As you get comfortable with the concept, you get comfortable with the product, you get comfortable with the organization, and organization gets comfortable with the automation as a
Yeah.
strategic tool. You can start expanding and going a bit more deeper.
Success works really well, is what you're saying. Once it starts
Yeah, and
succeeding,
the
there is
risk
a
appetite also increases because you
yeah,
have
yeah,
confidence, you get exposed
yeah,
to various scenarios.
absolutely.
Yeah. And
So I think
sorry, Sunny, please go
sorry.
ahead.
No, no, no. I thought I'll just after you finish, I thought I'll just invite some questions for the audience as well.
Let's do that. I think it's great if we can get some questions.
Yeah. Any questions from the audience? Would somebody like to ask question? Okay. Great. So while I think I'll put the offer to the audience after I ask this question to you, Sumit. Sumit, you mentioned processes which are happening once in a way, that they're very good candidates, but don't do it upfront, right? And one process that comes to my mind is the quarterly audit, the yearly audit, the annual audit, etc. Right? And closure of books. So those
The
are kind
books,
of
yeah.
things which are in the financials which are heavily loaded in these kind of seasonal transactions. So what are your experiences with some of them,
No,
and
so see,
what are the
if you
pros?
have done,
Yeah,
yeah, so Sunil, if you've done 10, 15 bots, if you've automated 5, 10 processes, go for them. That
yeah,
will fetch you all the fanfare in your organization, that will help you to provide uh,
yeah.
you will be able to provide lot of comfort
Hmm,
to your customer. I was speaking to one of the CFO, and he's working towards making his finance functions as invisible finance, right, where he would want to use automation end to end. He's bringing his the closure to the books to the date when it is requested, and
hmm,
preparing the report which goes to the management just after that, right? And that's
yeah,
possible because all the
hmm,
steps are automated. There is enough data to basically collate which bot can pick up, and it's all integrated and it moves on. So
okay,
I think these are the hotbeds for automation. I just want to
yeah,
re-emphasize my point. I don't want anyone to misconstrue. These are
hmm.
the really, really good candidates, but not in your first four or five processes which you're automating.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you
Yeah,
you did re-emphasize that, and what you're saying is that the wind has to be in your back before you go for a process like that, because if you miss the
yeah,
cycle, it'll take you till the next cycle to actually come up with that, to
yeah,
actually get the benefits of that, right? So,
exactly.
so great. I mean, there is a lot of CFOs who are actually at different stages of automation, different stages of their automation journey, right? So while there are these processes which are also seasonal processes, like you said, there are a lot of other candidates who are very easy picking for a first pass in automation in the CFO world. So, what are some of your experiences with that? I, I
I think
I
one of
think
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, I think you
No,
got my
no,
question.
sorry, please. I
Yeah,
got your question. Yeah. No, so
yeah,
I
yeah.
think one of the initial ones which we have seen is reporting, right?
Okay.
Because the CFOs have to build a lot of reporting,
Yeah.
collecting data from various different sources and put that into PPT and put that across. And I'm talking about not CFO, but I'm talking, the finance as a function which is
Mm-hmm.
required for the CFO. Then CFO can present that to the management team, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
that has been a really good area to start automation, because what's happening is there is no financial risk here. It's not that you're sending money outside the organization, right?
Yeah.
There's a data which can be easily collected and collated. And the most
Yeah.
important point, it is very time consuming and very stressful for the staff, right? They are
Yeah.
rushing last minute inaccuracies, some data got missed and all of that. But if you spend some good time to
Mm.
collect the information, design it in such a smarter way that variables can be
Yeah.
incorporated, and then it just becomes a industrialized process.
Absolutely. I think I spent a lot of time in my ERP career trying to, badmouth the Excel sheet. So, but now with RPA, I feel that the Excel sheet is actually not such a bad thing, because the bot does a lot of things on the Excel sheet for you if you train it to do it well, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah. So that's one thing. So I'll open up again to questions. Is there anybody who would like to ask question from the audience? We'll be happy to have one or two questions from you. Okay. Okay, great. Great. So, Sumit, one more thing is, you told us a lot about different processes and how they can be automated. I think it was very interesting to know what are the do's and the don'ts from an expert like you, Western. Many of our panel people who have joined us today would like to know how is it that you can actually measure ROI, and what should be your approach towards ROI when it comes to intelligent automation. So I'm saying intelligent automation because there are multiple. I mean, I'm sure I want you to cover the whole hog of RPA and IQ bot, etc. When you say what would your approach be to somebody who's beginning this journey or already in this journey and wants to improve his ROI?
We can have another 2 hours conversation on ROI.
Yeah, I know that. But
But
we have only 10 minutes. It's all yours.
okay.
Right.
So
Yeah.
let me divide the ROI question into two parts, right? One is that when you are looking at some hard saves which are quantifiable,
Yes.
and then there is also ROI when there are soft saves, right?
Yes.
Now, let
Yes.
me cover the soft saves part first, and then we look at the other one. Now, predominantly, when you start your automation journey, it is all about productivity save because that's the hard metrics through which you can show the success criteria,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
But there are deeper meaning to automation. Can you save the organization from reputational risk? So look into that, right? Can you basically avoid some cost saves, right?
Yeah.
So
Sure.
cost incurred, if it's not incurred, it will not come in the books, right? It will be saves, right? But can you do that? As we spoke about, the seasonal spikes, right? Once
Mm.
you have built 4 or 5 bots, and that's where it comes very handy because many a times organizations have to go through this hiring spree to overcome some seasonal spikes, right? But if you have
Sure.
bots instead, can you basically help organization not to do that, right?
Sure.
There
Yeah.
is sometimes some reputational like compliance need which comes through that certain
Yeah.
activities needs to be done, certain treatments have to be put in place, right? So could
Sure.
be many times from a regulator perspective it's a time bound activity, and if you don't do that you get a fine or you get some sort of a slap on the wrist, right?
Yes. Yes.
Could I apply, yeah, could I apply automation there to help banks in doing so, or the organizations for that matter in doing so, right? So please consider that area as well.
Yeah.
And as you start your journey, it's very important that you build that mindset of your organization that automation is not here for, FTE saves or productivity save. It is for far more larger reasons for this. Now,
Absolutely.
looking at the
I was
at
hearing
the
the CEO of Automation Anywhere speak, and he was speaking about empowering the human intellect.
yeah,
That's I think the word that you wanted to use, right? Yeah.
yeah, you're right. See,
Mihir Mihir Shukla was saying that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll give you one example, real example right now in COVID situation, right? So
Yes.
one of our customers, they reached out to us, which is National Health Services, that's in the UK, and they are
Yes.
the fifth largest employer in the world. And World Health Organization asked them that any test which is going through, you have to provide the data of that test to us, be negative or positive, because they want to
Yes.
create some pattern to understand how pandemic is spreading.
Oh,
Okay.
fantastic. That's great.
Now they get
Yeah.
25,000 forms a day, and each
Mm.
form is of 8 page.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
95 FTEs who are basically working towards that.
Yes.
Now, as you can appreciate in today's scenario, we would
Yes.
rather have those people on the front line helping in more critical tasks than at the back and
Ab-
doing data crunching.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
And
So we've got this very, yeah.
yeah. So what I was thinking was, one of the things in ROI, the conversation which is generally lost is we tend to talk about the process as it is today. But most of the organizations which are going in for RPA and for intelligent automation are organizations which are already growing. So what we need to look at also is the scalability of the process. So how much is scalability being impacted by the introduction of RPA? More than just trying to, like you said, trying to number crunch and see how much of FTE things happening, reputational risk, how much of scale is being
Yeah.
employed, what are the opportunities that are opening up. That's also very very important part of the
Yeah.
the ROI
And
conversation.
let's not
Yeah.
forget, right? Like, can you do more with less? Am I able to provide more services? Am I able to open new, opportunities by keeping the same cost base, right? All
Yeah.
of that could be considered. What about my customer experience? If I'm able to provide consistently the same experience to my customers and
Mm.
resolving the query in the one first call, all of that has got tremendous benefit, which may or may not get quantified, but it has its own impact in a different way, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's very important to consider because that's when you start building the culture, right? Otherwise it is all about statistics,
Oh yes.
right?
Oh yes. Yes. Yes.
Now if I can come on the other side, of the coin, ROI hard saves. I think that is one of the strong one of the strong reasons to automate, and the productivity save as we talk about it, right? So
Yep.
there one element that, okay, what goes into building that particular bot, right? So first thing first is that there is the ROI is directly dependent on the cost of building the bot. And the way we have basically made it simple for the organization is we have divided the bots into three different categories of simple, medium, and complex. And there's a science
Sure.
behind it, Sunil, and we can share that science with you, and you can do it with your customer. That there are
Yes.
certain attributes which you look into, which helps to define whether the bot is simple, which means that it will do certain steps. It will take 1 or 2 week max to build, and the cost associated with that 2 weeks of build, because that will require resources, that will require pro rata basis the license cost and the sorts,
Mhm.
right? And similarly, you've got medium and you've got complex, right? Now what happens is when you have got these stencils in place, when you do the assessment of your processes, you can see, okay, this particular process may be a simple process to automate, medium and complex, and then you have an high level, your 30% plus minus estimate of what will it take to build this particular process. And then you do your calculation that what is the time save I will have by doing time boxing that activity, and you can calculate your ROI, right?
Fantastic.
And that's
Fantastic.
that's how it is. And the industry benchmark which I have seen is that if you are able to achieve your ROI within the less than 9 months, it's a really good candidate to automate.
Absolutely.
I'm not
Sumit, I think
talking
that
about
was very,
seasonal ones. Yeah, I'm not
yeah,
talking
yeah.
seasonal ones. I'm talking about
No,
the
no, of
regular
course.
ones.
Regular ones. I completely agree. And I mean, we've been having several ROI conversations, and I think this is a very, very good perspective that you have got. So, Sumit, I would like to, I mean, since we've not got any questions so far, I would want to ask you one last question. It's a very, very important question. And I think you are the best person I know in the automation universe to answer it, because you have worked
Sunil,
across so many geographies and all that, right? Right? So, the
too
question
much
is,
of build up, Sunil. Too much of build
yeah,
up.
yeah,
But yeah, let's
yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I wanted to know what the cultural aspects of this, this entire thing. How you've seen different organizations. Where is it? In what kind of a cultural mindset does the automation initiative succeed best? And what are the
Okay.
kind of organizations within? That's the question that I have for you. And after that, I mean, if there are any other concluding remarks from you, I'd love to hear.
Yeah. See, every organization is different. I would say every line of business within the organization is different. Okay,
Yes,
because
yes,
it is led by people, and
yes,
people have got their own thought process and own reservations and apprehensions.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
Now,
yes.
there are the answer now post COVID would be slightly different because, coincidentally, we have been arm
Yeah.
twisted by this pandemic to think more differently, to
Yes,
automate the processes and make the
yes,
organization more resilient. Okay.
absolutely.
So those
BAU,
people,
BCP becomes BAU. Is that what we are trying to say? Yeah, right. Yeah,
exactly, right.
yeah,
And
yeah.
see, I've spoken to a lot of leaders after over the last 3 weeks. Actually, over the last since lockdown 1.0, right? And I asked them,
Okay.
were your bots useful in your BCP situation? They profoundly, everyone had the same answer. They said to me, the bot should not be used for BCP. They should be used for making your organization more resilient.
They
So
should be used for.
now,
Sorry, I missed that point. They should be
make
used for.
organization more resilient.
Okay.
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 So
Yeah.
you see, there is a change in mindset that everybody wants their job, the job and the process to continue. And how can we basically do that? And hence, automation can come handy. Many of those organizations would have not thought through, or they knew about the automation but never took that leap of faith because they thought it was risky. But now they
Yeah.
don't have a choice, but they got to do it because we want to be prepared better. We want to learn from our experience, right? So, is there any particular organization, any particular type of leadership which is more is more receptive to automation? I think in the past we have few people who are more have higher risk appetite, more risk taker, more innovative, and some are not early followers, right? They would like to wait and watch. So everyone has got their own ways of looking at it. But I think just last concluding point on that, the most important thing is that your ground swell, which is your the end user, You have to
Yes.
do bit of a cultural change to get them on board. When they are comfortable,
Yeah.
the automation program will go on its own. Then you don't have to fetch and look for use cases. Use cases will come to you because the end user understands and appreciates the importance of automation.
Absolutely. I think once the end user starts championing the process, it becomes a win-win situation for both the organization and the end user, right? So they
Yeah.
get they grow in their careers much more when the repetitive work is being done by a bot and they are doing more important things at that stage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Sumit, any concluding remarks to the panel? We've had a very quiet group which has joined us. I hope they've taken some good takeaways from this meeting. But any concluding remarks, I'd really be keen to hear.
But I think only one remark or one comment, concluding comment is, I think we the aut- so we are in this unprecedented situation, right? We have
Yes.
been forced to think differently. Take the advantage of that. See how you can help your organization with the new technology, with automation, in making your processes, your organization more robust and resilient. This is the time to take a leap of faith. This is the time to try new technology, because if you don't do it, right,
Yeah.
you will face far grave challenges in the future.
Sure. Thank you, Sumit. Sumit, it was a great session as always, interacting with you. And thank you very much for your time. And thank you everybody from the Automation Anywhere team as well as the CMSIT team and all the people who joined us this afternoon. Take care, stay safe, and like you said, like Sumit said, let's try and use the pandemic to make some transformational changes because it's already forcing it upon us. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.